In this video, we are going to be learning about AWS Cloudfront. Cloudfront is a content delivery network service that speeds up content delivery of web content to users by caching it in edge locations around the world. It is mainly used to improve website performance, accelerate dynamic content delivery, and stream videos and many other things it can be used for. AWS mainly has several number of edge locations from where they store the file for some amount of time and they serve those content to the users from the nearest location, and it mainly reduce the latency of the content delivery. So we can use CloudFront for many use cases like delivering static content like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and also images from the edge locations. If we want, we can also cache the API result that we are sending to our clients. We can also use it for streaming videos, delivering media content. CloudFront also provides some security, like it provides protection against DOS attack, but for that we need to enable AWS Shield or Web Application Firewall. It have an extra cost for it, and we can also use signed URLs and cookies to only allow the authorized user to access our files or static data from our CloudFront. So it's very cost effective. Here we only pay what we use, and it also have a free tier. The free tier is 1 TB of bandwidth per month, and it's always free. It means that you can use CloudFront and you will not be charged till you cross the 1 TB bandwidth limit quota. Now let's get on some hands-on experience how to use AWS Cloudfront. Inside your AWS console, search for Cloudfront, select this option. Here in the region, you will see that the region is selected as global because Cloudfront does not operate in single region. Instead, it operates in all the edge locations that are there inside AWS. Now here, if you already have a distribution, it will list like this. If in your cases you might not be having any distribution, let's add CloudFront to an S3 bucket where we can access the S3 objects from the private bucket using CloudFront. So here I have a private bucket. The name of the bucket is Random Bits 2025. Here I have some images and some videos. Now if we try to access any of the images directly, like copying the URL, then you will get the option that access is denied because it's a private bucket. We cannot directly access the object. But since we are going to be using CloudFront, in that case we can either use a public bucket or a private bucket. It doesn't matter which bucket you use. Here you need to first click on create a distribution. Here you need to give the name. Suppose we are going to be serving this images and video files. So for that we can just give a name as files CDN, serving files using CDN. It's a single app. If you want, you can just add your own custom domain, but we can do this step later on. For tags, if you want to add some tags, you can add. So for now, let's just click on next. Here our origin type can be of several types. It can be Elastic Load Balancer, API Gateway, Media Package, S3, VPC origin, or other. In case if your API or something is hosted outside AWS, then you should be selecting the other option and just specifying which the get route it should hit and load the content. So in our case, all our assets are located in AWS S3. So we are going to select S3 and then we need to click on Browse S3. From here, we need to select the bucket where our files are there. In this bucket, we have images and videos. So we need to just select the bucket so that from here we can load all the images and videos. Here, since it's a private bucket, so we should allow S3 private bucket access to CloudFront. For now, for origin setting, let's use the recommend settings that CloudFront prefers us to use. Click on next. Now here comes Web Application Firewall. This firewall is, as it says, that for 10 million requests it will cost around $14, but if you receive at least $10 also, then also it will charge $8 per month. If you think that you need Web Application Firewall, then you can enable. For this, we don't need it, so we are just disabling this. And from here, we can just create a distribution. After creating this distribution, we need to wait for some time, like it is still deploying. Let's just wait for 4 to 5 minutes. Till that time, here we have this security option. It's for web application firewall, and if you want to block any countries to access the file, then you can modify and edit here just using the block list and selected countries. Which countries you don't want to allow to access the content, you can just do that. Inside our origin, this was our origin. If you think that we need to have different CDN, like we need to only access the images files, then we can just specify the origin part as /images. Now here in our settings, we can change it like the pricing class. If you select all edge locations, then it will cost the most amount of money. If you think that most of your users are in North America and Europe, then you can select this option. Other parts of the countries will access through either Europe or America. And if we use this option, then it will be mostly favorable for North America, Europe, Asia and Africa. Other parts are going to get excluded. Either they will be rerouted from any other region. For this, let's use all edge locations and custom certificate. If you want to upload your own certificate, then you can also do that. Now here we can see that our CDN has been now deployed. Here we can just copy the distribution name and just open here. We'll find that we have not yet set anything. For that reason it's not showing. But if we go to images, let's copy this name, and for this accessing, we need to access images, the name of a folder and the file name. Now you can see that we are accessing our S3 object, but this time it's coming from CDN. Just click on inspect option and check the networks tab. Here if we reload, we find that it's coming from CDN. You can see that the server is S3 and it's coming as hit from Cloudfront. It means that it's coming from the cached data in AWS. In this case, we can access all the images that we have inside our AWS S3 bucket using Cloudfront. And we can also access the videos, like we have some videos. For this, we need to go to videos, .mp4. So now you can see that we can access all the objects. Now here we know that these objects are coming from CDN. It is having very less latency. But the problem is that if anyone tries to just type any URL, in that case it will show like this. Suppose if they get to know about the correct URL, they type any random thing and a random video or random file comes. So if we see that if anyone tries to enter the object name, then they are going to get the access without any requirements for authentication or something. So to prevent this, we need to be using some kind of cookie or a pre-signed URL. Let's learn how we can implement pre-signed URL and cookie-based authentication so that only the authorized person can access the content using CDN, not everyone. Like currently, anyone can access this URL from anywhere and they will get this video. So for adding authentication, we need to mainly visit the public keys option. Here we need to create our own public key and add it. So when you click on create public key, here we need to first generate our public key either on our machine or somewhere else. And then we need to paste that public key here. So here I am inside subsystem for Linux and Windows. Currently I'm running Ubuntu, and if I type OpenSSL, then OpenSSL mainly comes pre-installed in Linux, so I have installed. For this I'm not installing in other operating system. Now here I can simply type OpenSSL gen RSA out private key .pem 2048, and this will generate a private key. Like you can see, it has generated a private key for me. Now we need to generate a public key from this private key. For this, we can just run this command OpenSSL RSA in private key.pem out. Just enter, and here our public key got generated. Now we can copy this public key here and paste it. This is our public key. We need to name, just create a public key. Here you can see that here it has created an ID and name of our public key. Will not be able to edit the key, will be only be able to edit the description, but this thing is not allowed. Either we need to delete this key and upload another key. Now here inside key groups, we need to create a key group, allow access to CloudFront. Just select the public key that we want to use, create key group. Here our key group has been created. Now currently, as you can see, that here we can access any object directly without any authentication or anything. We need to first stop this. So inside our distribution, the distribution that we recently created, here inside the behaviors, here we have the default behavior. First, we need to restrict viewer access. In this case, here you can choose trusted key groups or trusted signers. We have already created a key group, so we'll be using this and just save the changes. It is deploying, so we need to wait for some time till it gets deployed. So now our CloudFront has been deployed. Here we can access the images directly. But now if we try to refresh, you'll find that missing key parameter, key pair ID or cookie value is missing. It means that currently we have disabled direct access to CloudFront. We either required a signed cookie or a signed URL to access the CloudFront object. In most cases, we'll be using that. So here, let's write some code by which we can allow access to a specific user, either using signed cookie or signed URL. In my case, I'm going to be using Node.js. So for here, let me first use pnpm init to initialize the repository. Here, let's also install CloudFront Signer. This package is required for creating signed URL or signed cookie. So here, let's just create an index.js file. Here we are going to be writing the logic for generating signed URL or cookie. Here we are not going to be using full stack express server. Instead, we are only going to be writing the simple function. If you want, you can integrate with some middleware or anything that you wish. First, let's just convert this to type module. Here we'll be requiring two things. Here we'll be requiring get signed URL and get signed cookies from CloudFront Signer and file system, because we are going to be reading our private key that we have generated. Let's load our private key using private fs.read file async, and we are reading private key.pem. UTF-8 is the type of the file that is there. Make sure that the name of the key, private key, is similar to this. Now we'll be requiring our key pair ID. Here inside CloudFront in public keys, this is our key pair ID. Just copy this ID. Just create one more variable that will be our key pair ID and paste this. For generating a signed URL for particular specific object to get using CDN, we are creating a create signed URL function where we are going to be passing the URL for getting the specific object and the time to expire. Here we'll just call get signed URL and pass the URL, key pair ID, private key, and the date less than means the time to expire. Now this is the simple function. We are going to just specify the URL and the key pair ID. We are reading it from here and the time to expire. Let's just run this function. Let's just create const signed URL. When you just call create signed URL, pass the URL. For this, let's just copy the object. This was our object. In case you want to allow access to some specific object, in that case you should be using pre-signed URL. Like I want to allow access to this object. Let me just copy the URL, pass the URL, and now we need to pass our expired time. So it will be datetime.now. So we want to allow the access to the file for 1 hour. For this, we'll just add 60 seconds, and again 60 is now 1 hour, and then our milliseconds. Now it's okay. We are allowing the access for this image object for 1 hour. Let's use console.log signed URL. And now let's try to run this. Here we are getting the signed URL. Let's just copy this URL and now let's try to paste this URL. You'll find that we are now able to access the image, but here we are using signed URL. Once this URL is only valid up to 1 hour, then we need to generate new URL so that the user can get access to it. So this is one way how to use signed URLs. Now let's learn how we can also use signed cookie. Here we are going to be writing the function to generate a signed cookie for allowing access to some specific folder or wildcard. Like we want to give access to our videos folder, those who are authenticated and have a signed cookie. For this we need to create a signed cookie, and for creating such kind of signed cookie we'll be required to create a policy. For that, let's do that here. First, let's create a function named create signed cookie with wildcard. Here we are going to be providing the base URL. Here we need to create a policy, and here inside policy we need to pass the statement. Here statement we need to pass the resource. Since we want to only allow access to all the files inside video folder, for this we are setting the base URL. This will be our CloudFront URL, then videos, and this wildcard indicates all the files inside our videos folder. Then just pass the condition that date less than. This is the expiry time. You need to pass this tag. So I'm not doing this for myself. All this documentation is written in AWS package itself. So you can read this package. Now here, after we have done, now after a policy, we need to create a cookie variable and we need to call get signed cookies, pass our key pair ID, private key, and our policy in JSON.stringify format. Now we have got the cookie. Here, if we call this function, let's just return the cookie. In this case, we are returning the cookie, but in your actual case, you should be sending the response and rest.cookie. So let's call this function like const sign cookie. Let's call sign cookies with wildcard, pass our CloudFront URL, and we need to also pass the time. Let's make it valid for 1 hour like the previous one. And now let's just use console.log signed cookie. Let's run this function. Now you can see that we are getting a signed cookie. The cookie contains key pair ID, CloudFront signature, and CloudFront policy. For now, we are getting this cookie directly, so we need to manually add the cookie. Currently, if you see that we have this kind of things like rabbit.mp4, dog.mp4, unknown.mp4. If we try to access this file, let's say videos unknown.mp4, then we'll get the same thing, but now we have generated a cookie. In this case, what we can do, inside our storage, we can just create a cookie by ourselves. Let's copy this value like the key. Let's copy this and paste it. Again, copy and paste the value. We need to add more values like this. CloudFront signature, copy the signature, copy the value. Don't include quotes. And now the last one, CloudFront policy. In this case, we are adding the cookie manually, but in your case, you should always use rest.cookie to return the cookie in response from where the client calls your backend. So we have now just added the cookie. Now you can check all the values are correct. Let's try to refresh this. In our case, we have just given one extra slash. For that reason, it's wrong. Let's try to generate it again. Just copy the signature and paste it here. Copy the policy and paste it here. Now let's try to refresh. You'll find that we are able to load the video. Now our cookie is added. It means that we can also access any videos inside the folder like cats one, anyone. Just copy the name. See, we don't require pre-signed URL for everything. So this is all happening because we have a cookie that we have created by ourselves, and we have added this manually. But in your case, what is going to happen when user will be calling your backend? From your backend, you will be sending the cookie using response.cookie, and it will create a cookie on users front end so that they can access the file within the specific wildcard that we're providing. In our case, we were providing the wildcard of slash videos so that we can provide access to all of the videos, those who have this cookie. But if we try to access any images, but this cookie will not allow us to access any images. Let's say we want this image. In that case, we'll get this error as access denied because we are allowing access to only our videos folder, not images folder. So in this way, we learn how to generate signed URL and signed cookies with wildcard. So in this way, you can identify which one to use. Either you should be using signed URL or signed cookie to allow specific access to some specific folder and specific files. Now CDN itself is free. If you want, you can use the CDN, but if you think that you don't require, then you need to disable the CDN first. For deleting the CDN, first you need to disable the CDN. It will take some time, and after disabling the CDN, you will get the option to delete from here. It will take some time because it's just disabling. Wait for some time, and when it's done, you can just simply delete that CDN. Now after disabling it, it's still deploying. So when this deploying is done, we'll get the option to delete it. As you can see here, it's saying that it's now deployed. Now we can simply go to our distribution, and now we are getting the option to delete it. Simply click on delete and the distribution will be deleted now. So now that's all for this video.